Hey folks, I hope you're doing fantastic today. Speaking of today, today's podcast is with my guest, Sam Daley Harris. He's the author of Reclaiming Our Democracy. And no, this is not a political book or anything like that. It's not something that's divisive or left or right or anything. This is more about transforming yourself. So this book is exactly that. And that conversation today is going to inspire you. So once again, please welcome Sam Daley Harris.
Welcome to Amazing People, Amazing Things with your host, Chuck.
Welcome, Mr. Sam Daley Harris. How are you?
Great. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here because we got some things to talk about. First of all, you are the author and you have a book called Reclaiming Our Democracy, and that can be found at reclaimingourdemocracy.com. So let's, before we really get into who you are and what got you started into this, I want to ask you, what is Reclaiming Our Democracy about? And is it political?
Well, it's not party political. It's not Democrats or Republicans, but it is that we have a voice that we don't use very well. And we really want to make the world a better place, but we don't know where to start. And so the book is about a different kind of advocacy. Everybody knows transactional advocacy, sign the petition, transaction complete. The book is not about that. It's about transformational advocacy, which is much less known. And it's basically helping you get trained, encouraged, and do things as an advocate that you never thought you could do, like meet with a member of Congress and bring them on board to your issue, or write a letter to the editor and have it published on something you care about. And when you do those things that you never thought you could do, you see yourself in a new light. You see yourself differently. A transformation from I can't to I can as takes place. And the subtitle is Reclaiming Our Democracy, Every Citizen's Guide to Transformational Advocacy. So it's about we can make a bigger difference than we even imagine.
That's the thing that of so many people think, well, it's such a big thing, a big issue. I can't make a difference, so therefore I'm not going to do anything about it. And that's really the wrong way to go about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the book, I talk about a couple of things. I talk about what do you look for in an organization to see if they deliver transformational advocacy. It's almost like church, kind of checking out different churches. And I named 3 things that an organization does if it's committed to delivering transformational advocacy. Because I could join that group or I could join that group and get nothing from them really. Or I could find a group that really would feed me. So thing 1 is recruitment. They bring new people in, they form them into chapters so you're not working alone. And they have maybe a monthly webinar with a guest speaker, Q&A, inspiration. So number 1 is recruitment. Do they really form chapters and more? Build community. 2, training. How do you get the meeting with the elected official? How do you plan for the meeting? What do you ask for in the meeting? How do you write training? Number 2. 3, breakthroughs. Does the group encourage breakthroughs? Does the group encourage you to do things that you never thought you could do and helps you do those things? So it's recruitment, training, and breakthroughs. And that's the kind of thing that you're looking for in an organization that will move you, in a sense, off the couch and into the game.
Well, I guess it's true. Like I said, it's an organization because it is organized and you have these things in place, processes. So, you said that other word, courage. Where do we get that courage to really to do this or to find and look for something like this?
Let me tell my story if I could. Kind
Yeah,
of like,
please.
where did my kind of impetus come from? And I call this knowing your why and sharing it. There's a professor at Harvard, Marshall Gans, who calls it the story of self, which basically asks what happened in your life and what decisions did you make that got you to this commitment. And so I'm going to tell my story of self, but I want the viewers and the listeners to think about their story. Do they know their story, or should they write it down and get clarity on it? Do they know it, but they don't share it? Do they know it and share it? Here's mine. It's kind of wacky, but here's how it goes. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in music, and I played percussion instruments in the Miami Philharmonic Orchestra for 12 years and taught high school music. And then 44 years ago, I founded the Anti-Poverty Lobby Results. And a lot of times people ask, music, poverty lobby, what's the connection there? And when I look back in my life, there's certain experiences that start pointing me in a different direction. The death of a friend around high school graduation in 1964 and the assassination of U.S. Senator Robert Kennedy around college graduation in 1968 got me to asking the questions of purpose. Why am I here? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? 9 years later, 1977, I'm invited to a presentation on ending world hunger put on by the Hunger Project. And I go to this event thinking, well, hunger's inevitable. What do I know? I'm a musician. I mean, I'm thinking it's inevitable because there must be no solutions, because if there was solutions, somebody would have done something by now. But I go to this event and it's obvious right away, there's no mystery to growing food, clean water, basic health, literacy. I'm not hopeless about the perceived lack of solutions. I'm hopeless about human nature. People will just never get around to doing the things that can be done. But there's one human nature I have some control over, my own, and my questions. Why am I here? What am I here to do? So I get involved in a big way. This is the end of the story. In 1978 and 1979, I spoke to 7,000 high school students, classroom by classroom, on ending world hunger. And just before I went into the first classroom, I read some statements from Jimmy Carter's Commission on World Hunger and others calling for the political will to end hunger. So I asked 7,000 high school students, what's the name of your member of Congress? I don't want to know if you wrote him. I don't want to know if you met him. Just the name. Out of 7,000 asked, what's the number that could tell me just the name of their member of Congress?
Under 10%.
200, fewer than 3%, could answer correctly. 6,800, over 97%, couldn't tell me the name of their member of Congress. And results, this anti-poverty lobby grew out of this gap between the calls for the political will to end hunger on the one hand and the lack of basic information who represented us in Washington on the other. And my story is a little unlikely that musician and activist, what's that about? But it really lives in stumbling onto my purpose, you could say. Like, why am I here? I mean, what am I here to do? And
That's actually a really good story and a really good lead in, because here in my home state, my hometown, there are a few musicians, many musicians that perform annually for different organizations to raise awareness, to raise funds. One of them is called Breast Fest, and it's for women cancer, breast cancer. And it was a guy who started that. And then that's been going for 2-3 years, I think. And then we have this other thing called Porn Jam. Don't ask me how that name got started, but it's been going, I think, close to 19 or 20 years. And it helps to feed the hungry people in the city, plus, I believe, an animal shelter.
Yeah.
So, the people who perform at those things, they're doing something. So I hope they and everyone else realizes, hey, I can make a difference. I am one person, but I'm a collective in an organization that's doing something.
Let me just say that your stories are just showing that people want to make a difference. People want to give back. And in reclaiming our democracy, it also talks about, let's call them the tougher issues, the bigger issues: world hunger, climate change, global peace, and so it's really about giving your voice for an issue that many would perceive as hopeless, too big. What can I do? And I've got lots of stories of people who actually go from I can't do it and then had some success. I'd love to share a few.
Yeah, I just want to add something real quick, is where a lot of the folks who feel as though they want to do something, but they can't make a difference because they said, oh, I can't. I can't do it because I'm just a little guy. There are platforms available for you there, which have already started, and those are those organizations that you could join.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm talking about in the book is, you're not working on climate change on Congress alone. You're in your local group with 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 others. You're not working on within the group that I particularly pitch is Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm going to tell you a story about them in a second.
Yes.
You're not working alone on global or domestic poverty. You're working with the group Results that I founded, and I could go on. But let me just tell you this story. I was talking with the head of organizing for a very large organization. Everyone viewing and watching would know this group's name completely. No one wouldn't know it. And the head of organizing said to me, we can't let our volunteers write letters to the editor or op-eds because they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the organization. Like protecting the brand is more important than empowering their members. Well, Citizens Climate Lobby, I know the number before COVID, the year before COVID, their volunteers had 4,300 letters to the editor, op-eds, and editorials published. One group saying they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the organization. Citizens Climate Lobby saying, what do we have to do to help them get it right? And give that to them. And the end result is their volunteers have more than 4,000 letters, op-eds, and editorials published. That's kind of the night and day of one group feeds you power and one group withholds power from you.
That would be the difficult thing, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes we become so excited that we are in the organization, but then all of a sudden our information is withheld. And then we go back to the very beginning. I can't make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're going to put in chat or somewhere, post a sign-up sheet where anyone who's interested in connecting with one of these groups that can actually feed you power, you can do the sign-up sheet thing. Let me know about it, and I'll help you connect with them.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll make sure that we get that in the show notes. So thank you on that. So we touched on a little bit about some of your passions on this. What more? Climate change, hunger.
Yeah.
What other things are the important things to you personally?
Well, let me say it a different way. There are the issues which are of importance to me personally. But then there's just democracy. Democracy for this issue, democracy for this, democracy for all issues. And there was this study by the Congressional Management Foundation They asked grassroots advocacy professionals. That's the staff who do grassroots advocacy. And they asked the professionals, what's your primary tactic? And the professionals said 79% said their primary tactic was an email form letter. You know, give me your name and your zip code, and we'll send the letter for you. 79% said an email form letter was their primary tactic, but only 3% of congressional staff said an email form letter made a big difference in their office's decision. So we're mostly being fed these email form letters, of which only 3% of congressional staff says makes a difference. So what we're being fed doesn't make much of a difference. 94% of staff, congressional staff, said in-person issue visits by constituents made either a big or some difference, 94%. So, you know, that's the organizations that I would send people to that coach you and train you and encourage you to have that in-person issue visit as a constituent. Because, Chuck, where you live, I have no power. Your member of Congress isn't interested in what I have to say. Your senators don't care what I have to say. They do care what you have to say, unless, you know, we're quiet, then it's irrelevant kind of thing. So you said, what issues, what other issues? I'm stepping back again to the big issue of, in a sense, not only of our silence, but of how organizations contribute to silencing us by, you know, the email form letters or the online petitions or whatever that is. And we have to figure out a way to get around that silencing. Let me tell you a story of one volunteer, just to give you a flavor of. So this woman, she's in the book, and there's a chapter about her. Her name is Maxine Thomas. She grew up in poverty, and she joined a group called Circles, where people who want to work together to move out of poverty. And her group realized that they had a story to tell. And they Googled around to find an organization that could help them tell their story. And they found results. The Anti-Poverty Lobby I founded. And she gets involved. And before I tell the rest of the story, she told me, I had a heart for service, but I was clueless about advocacy, especially political advocacy. Well, she joins Results. She gets a scholarship to go to the Results conference in D.C. She borrows luggage, goes to D.C., clueless about politics. And the night before her first ever meetings with her members of Congress, she learns that the Earned Income Tax Credit is about to expire. The Earned Income Tax Credit provided $3,100 to a working low-income family during tax time as a credit that they would receive, which was a big deal to her family. She goes and she meets, the first meeting with her U.S. Senator Coates, Republican of Indiana. You know, she meets, I think, 5 of the 6 members of Congress she meets with from her state of Indiana are Republicans. At the end of the day, she said, I was euphoric. I was on this high and felt I was part of something revolutionary. Now, she started with, I was clueless. And she got to, I was euphoric. I was on this high and felt I was part of something revolutionary. That is transformational advocacy, from clueless to euphoric. And I think it's a really great example of what's available.
Well, I just want to add to that, where a lot of us may want to do something, but then we have the other excuse, I don't have time. So I would say, take the time to make the time, because it will make a difference. And everything is a make. It will.
Yeah.
And as far as not being able to, well, when I asked you, can you nail down a few other things for you? I guess the overall bridging thing is just care.
Yeah.
Just care.
Yeah.
And then start from there.
Yeah. Could I give you an example of like I've done a few NPR interviews, national interviews, like they go to 300, 400 stations. One was Here and Now is the name of the program. And the other was 1A. This was this year, the interview. And the interview nailed why the book Reclaiming Our Democracy is so needed. And if I can, I'm going to call up and read you the second question that he asked me. And I think he was speaking for all of us when he asked me this question. This is on national radio. So I think he was so vulnerable. It was amazing. He said, the passive nature to our politics now, you can feel beat down by it. I mean, this is my career, he said, and I feel beat down by it. It's much more of an effort for me. I don't participate the same way others do because I'm a political journalist, but I do have to pay attention. It's a grind. It's a grind, Sam. I mean, I know you know that. What am I feeling? What's the way out of that? I'm not an activist, but you know what I'm saying. And I think he so nailed how so many other people feel. The first thing I said to him was Apollo astronaut Rusty Schweikert said, we aren't passengers on Spaceship Earth. We're the crew. Well, are we? And if we're crew, how does crew operate? What do we do? And the second thing, I think he's from Washington State, futurist and climate activist Alex Steffen said, in fact, these days, cynicism is obedience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, if I'm cynical, I'm obedient to the way things are. I'm not going to do anything. Why would I if nothing I do makes a difference? So I love that quote. In fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. I know the cynics want to be cynical, but they don't want to be obedient. And that's what they end up being if they don't get involved.
Yeah, it's if you do nothing,
You get nothing.
You get nothing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot to think about, and it's much easier than I think what a lot of us make it out to be. I think all of us are guilty about making excuses. We may want to do, we may want to help. We have all these grand ideas, but we always have an excuse for ourselves not to.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a lot of those things,
Yeah.
but those excuses are barriers that you could just go past because they're your choices to make, to do.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, if this is Earth and we're the crew, you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Crew works.
Yeah.
So.
And that's again why connecting with an organization that feeds you power is so important, because if you like watch this podcast or listen to this podcast and go, yeah, those were some really great ideas, and you go back to your life and turn on the news, and then you turn on the news the next day, you need support. You need a structure of support, and not just listen to this or watch this and go, yeah, that's really right. And the world's going to help me. No, the world will not help you. The world will tell you to shut up and sit down. It's all a crock. And, you have to find your people. You find your community. You have to find your structure of support. And in the notes for this podcast, you can sign up for a sheet to let me know that you want to be connected, and I can help you do that.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have that in the notes. And then once again, for folks out there, we're having a conversation with Sam Daley Harris, and his book is Reclaiming Our Democracy. Is right? Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Let me tell you
And then
this.
you've got your sub.
It is the first edition was released 30 years ago.
That is
The
crazy.
first
Wow.
edition was called Reclaiming Our Democracy, Healing the Break Between People and Government. And it was recently released in 2024. And the title is Reclaiming Our Democracy. We've taken 12 chapters out and 7 new chapters or sections have put in. And the new title is Reclaiming Our Democracy, Every Citizen's Guide to Transformational Advocacy. Yeah.
And it's easy to go to. It's just
Yeah.
reclaimingourdemocracy.com is where they can go. Do we want to mention your civic
Sure,
organization?
it's primarily for organizations called Civic Courage. That's where I
Hmm.
coach nonprofits to create structures of support that will help deliver transformational advocacy. So I think the most useful website is reclaimingourdemocracy.com, where the sign up sheet is also on that website. And I think that's the most
Okay.
useful for folks.
I think this has been a fantastic conversation this morning, and for the viewers, the audience out there, you can make a difference. As Sam is saying, that every single one of us counts. We all
That's
matter.
right. Yeah.
I want to say thank you very much for this inspirational conversation because you've got me juiced, you've got me charged. Oh, you know what? I got a fun question to ask you. Hey, folks, I just want to say thank you very much for sticking around, watching, and listening to this podcast with Sam Daley Harris on Reclaiming Our Democracy. So I've got a little bit of an extra right after this. It's Sam talking about some songs that have inspired him or that kind of remind him of some of the things that we talked about. So the big thing here, or the big takeaway, is remember, you can make a difference. So go out there, be passionate, and make a difference. Let's get right back to it. There's got to be songs out there that kind of inspire and juice you to make
Yeah.
get motivated.
Actually, when the book came out, I was a few months later invited to write a column in a democracy newsletter called The Fulcrum. And so I've written about 14 columns, and about 5 of them have kicked off with songs, song titles, song lyrics. And one of the songs, and I may mention 2, actually there are 3, and one's a mind-blowing thing, if you don't mind. So one of the lyrics, I was driving with my daughter near our local library, and a song was on the radio, and it's Sarah Bareilles, and there's this lyric, and I said, Sophie, did she just say, show me how big your brave is? And it was the song Brave by Sarah Bareilles. And yeah, that's what she said. And so I did this whole column that kicked off of that lyric, show me how big your brave is, which could be a little bit what Reclaiming Our Democracy about. I'm going to give you 2 more.
Yeah.
Another is there's this song by Alicia Keys, We Are Here. I don't know that you want this drummer to sing for you, but it's We are here. We are here for all of us. We are here for all of us. That's why we are here. And really spoke to that story of self. Know your why and share it. What happened in your life? And so the why are we here was a kickoff for another column. The other one there are a bunch of them. I mean, one of the columns, the first column was I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which is really about, crappy advocacy and signing petitions kind of thing. Another was when Eric Carmen died, he wrote a song, All by Myself, which was
Hmm.
the column was all about don't advocate all by yourself. Find a group, find a community, find a structure of support. But the one that's been reprinted in the Chicago Sun-Times, the Tennessean in Nashville, etc., featured in this Christian Science Monitor. It played off a singer. Oh God, I listen to her every day. I'm very moved by her. Eva Cassidy. Now, I don't know if you know Eva Cassidy. She does the song When I Want to Calm Down, I listen to Eva Cassidy's version of Fields of Gold. But the mind-boggling song that she does is her version of Over the Rainbow is out of the ballpark. Well, Eva Cassidy was this unknown musician, unknown singer. And at 34, I think it was, she developed melanoma and died of cancer at about age 34. And 6 weeks before her death, the artists, the musicians in D.C., was where she lived, that area, did a benefit concert to pay for, I'm getting moved just thinking about what I'm about to say, to pay for her medical bills and the like. And that night, she took extra morphine so she could get through the pain of her cancer. And she got on the stage and she sang one song. And she sang, What a Wonderful World. And in the column I write, imagine, with the despair and the death and the debt, of all the songs she chose to sing, she sang, What a Wonderful World. What if our politics came from such grace? What if our politics express such gratitude? And, I express in the column, in a sense, with transformational advocacy, it could do just that. People should Google Eva Cassidy Over the Rainbow. Your socks will be knocked off when you hear her sing Over the Rainbow.
Well, definitely, you could tell that it has an emotional attachment to you that moves you. So, find something that moves you. You can make a difference, definitely. So, Sam, once again, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.